Well, good morning, everybody. On behalf of Talya, Miron-shatz, the Health IT Forum, CatCap, and the Medica, I would like to welcome you to this year's eHealth Venture Summit at Medica. This is now the 4th edition of the eHealth Venture Summit at Medica. And in the past 4 years, we had about 140 applicants for this conference here, from more than 12 countries and around about 20 panelists evaluating the different companies. Now then, digital medicine is striving these days. Last year we asked the 29 participants what their growth expectation would be for the upcoming year. And so they said 400% would be their expected growth in the upcoming year. And this demonstrates the incredible dynamics of the market. Yet the challenge is really for these digital health startups to bring together the academic, medical, IT, and the business perspective. Or more plastically, it's about the art of cooking a primordial soup made of clinical experience, research thinking combined with an entrepreneur spirit. And this is what the event is all about. Now then, we've got 2 rounds. The first round is going to be the presentation of 8 of the most promising startups in Europe. The second round is going to be a discussion among investors, what they are looking for at the moment. And in between, we've got the honor to get a talk by Talya Miron-shatz, my co-chair, about what is new in digital health. I must apologize, Professor Werner. Today he's in the ministry and wasn't able to come today. So what we do now, I would like to ask the first startup to come to the stage. And before we ask the startup, I would like to introduce our panelists. And we go from left to right, from right to left. Talya, the microphone is yours.
Hello. You'll be hearing too much about me when I give the talk at 1 o'clock. I'm a psychology professor, and it's the 4th year that I have the honor to be doing this event with Dr. Stefan Becker. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. My name is Caspar Stauffenberg. I'm managing partner at CatCap. We are a corporate finance advisory company, and I'm looking at the life sciences and medical device businesses.
Good morning. Piepenbrock. I'm with Amgen, an American pharmaceutical company. I'm located at the Berlin Technology Hub, and I'm prospecting for technologies that might match our pharmaceutical needs.
Good morning. My name is Clara Leonard. I am part of the investment team at Digital Health Ventures. We're a venture capital fund based in Berlin. We're investing across all Europe, and as the name rightly suggests, in digital health. And we invest mostly in seed or Series A rounds.
Good morning. My name is Pfister. I am with the Gründerfonds, the largest early-stage seed fund in Europe. We invest across all technologies, and I'm with a life science team where we have a fair amount of digital health companies in our portfolio.
Thank you very much. So we're going to start the pitch now. The basic rules are that the presentation takes about 6 minutes. Caroline over there is going to give you a sign once 4 minutes are over. And afterwards there are 6 minutes of discussion. We've got 5 minutes of discussion, sorry. We've got an evaluation grid here. And afterwards we take all the evaluation forms by the panelists and see who the winner is. And at about 2 o'clock, 13:50, we will have the award ceremony. So we're going to start now. The 4th company being presented today is Carmel Diagnostics from Israel. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Tzali Knani from Carmel Diagnostics in Israel. We have developed a an innovative, non-invasive system for embryo selection in IVF. IVF is in vitro fertilization. And our system substantially improves the success rate in IVF. The biggest challenge in IVF is selecting the right embryo for transfer. Success rate so far is very poor. It's around 20 to 30% in good clinics, and it must be improved. And we are here to improve it and to bring the solution to this market. The IVF market as such grows in about 6% a year and is expected to be some $20 billion in 2020. We target the part of embryo selection, as I will detail later on, which is assessed as something like 500 million euro per year now. And we expect to take about 10% of that market within 5 years of activity. We developed a device which is based on oxidative stress as a biomarker. Oxidative stress, as some of you know, is the imbalance between free radicals and antioxidants in the body. And it's recognized as a very important factor in many, many diseases and pathologies. Measuring oxidative stress can give us good information which may be used for diagnosis, prognosis, treatment monitoring. So our system is a platform, but we focus, in entrepreneurship, I have learned that the magic word is focus. So we focus on the first application of embryo selection. We use a technology called, we call it thermochemiluminescence, which provides us with very detailed and accurate information about what's going in the process, and we use it after, finding the correlation between. Is it okay? Okay. So it gives us information about the correlation between the parameters we measure and the outcome. Few words about the company. We have a very strong management with a lot of experience in fact, all the aspects of running a business, from startup to established companies, R&D activity, marketing, business development. Our scientific advisory board is led by Professor Chechanover, a Nobel Prize winner, who helps us in setting the direction, the strategy in all the scientific aspects. We have run several studies, and we go on doing it, and our results show something like 15% improvement over the gold standard, or over what's going on now. And I'll speak about the competition a little bit later. We managed to build partnerships with two companies in two aspects, and I would say that our partners are the best partners that somebody can dream of. In the area of the clinical validation, we work with EV Valencia, the biggest and best by far IVF clinics networks in the world, and we do it in the last 3 years with a very good relationship. Okay. In the engineering part, we work with Aran R&D. It's an Israeli engineering company specializing in the medical field, and they have about 150 engineers, and we applied together, and we won the phase 1 and phase 2 in SME instrument under Horizon 2020, and our common project is already running. The endorsement is not only from SME instrument, where we got both phase 1 and phase 2, but we also applied and won GFI grant for fertility innovation for Merck Serono, one of the leaders in the world of fertility. We seek now €2 million investment. In fact, the budget coming from the European Union let us do the development at this point without the need for extra money, but we want to accelerate the development, to extend the development, to have working capital, to enable us to do a study in the US, which is not financed by the European Union, and we will need it in order to get FDA down the road. We plan to have a CE mark in 9 to 12 months, and as I said, FDA sometime later, and we expect revenues, as I mentioned earlier, of about 60 million euro in the 50 years of sales, and we believe that one that will invest in our company will have a very good return on investment, and we believe also, and it's not just a belief, I mean we've checked it, that there are many exit options. Thank you very much. And this is the future, which is bright.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. First of all, questions from the panel here.
I might have a first question. So what actually do you measure? And do you need a sample preparation for?
Okay, well, good question. As I mentioned, we measure oxidative stress. Now, the way we do it is we measure the medium in which the embryo is incubated for 3 or 5 days. Before that, the sample preparation is done as part of the process. We do, in few words, we do shaking in order to get a unified layer, because we use 15 microliter of medium, okay, in which the embryo is incubated. We do slow drying using vacuum, and then we heat it in order to accelerate the oxidation process. We do what we call heat-induced oxidation, and we measure, did I mention chemiluminescence? So we measure the photons emitted from the sample using photomultiplier, and then we do it in 5 minutes, so we have 300 figures which we correlate to the outcome. So that gives us very good information about the embryo viability and competence.
Maybe for an internist, you said 15% increase compared to gold standard. Was that an RCT or feasibility study? What sort of study was that?
It was well, it wasn't an RCT, it was a retrospective study, more than one. And as I said, we checked, I don't have enough time, to go over the details, but it showed something like 15, depending on the study, between 15 to 25% improvement in the implantation rate. Okay, in the pregnancy, we do pregnancy check after 12 weeks, using ultrasound. We check pregnancy sex, and that's what we found. And I have details about that to everybody who would like to have it.
Hi. So I understand that you're selling to IVF clinics.
We plan to sell to IVF clinics. Unfortunately, we don't do it yet. We still have some work to do, including RCT.
Okay, and I'd like to understand the market of IVF clinics better. Are the revenues somehow linked to success rate, and do they have to publish the success rates?
They publish the success rates. That's one. Okay. When they have higher success rates, more people come and they make more money. So there is a connection between that, and of course there is a good reason to improve the success rate, because IVF cycle is about $15,000 to $20,000 in the US, and equivalent in Europe, and normally they need few cycles in order to get the pregnancy and to get the birth of a live child. So if you can have, let's say, 3 instead of 4 cycles, okay, and you save money, you save grief, you save the time, and you help people to get better results, and that's very important. So just one comment about that. In many, many countries in the world, IVF is financed by the governments, okay? Either on a limited number or unlimited, like in my country. But we are crazy, not just in that. And but in America, for instance, it's completely private. Okay, so there is a market, and the European market is even bigger than the American one. And I think success rate is very, very important. And the embryo selection is a holy grail in this process, found to be.
Time for a question?
Okay, I think we are done. Thank you very much for this lovely presentation.
You're welcome.
A quick round of applause for Carmel Diagnostics. And now I'd like to ask the company Flotion from Denmark onto the stage.
Thank you very much. Should I use this one? So how do I switch to the slide? There. Yes, my name is Hans Petersen, and I come from the Danish company Flotion AS. And I'm going to present to you our instrument called a glycostat, which is a blood glucose device that stabilizes blood glucose in the intensive care unit. Now, why do we want to do that? If you look at the curve, you can see that sometimes, or quite often, the blood glucose is too high. These two lines here, that's where it should be. And you see our measurement, that's the blue curve, that the patient is way too high. The red crosses are what is measured by the nurse on the blood gas instrument. And the way they try to get the blood glucose into the normal area is by applying insulin, fast-acting insulin, intravenously preferable. And you can see that with only the information given by the red crosses, it's very, very difficult. And you can see it actually also did not succeed. You can see at one incident here, the blood glucose went below the lower red line, meaning that the patient was in his way to being hypoglycemia. And if that had been continued, now fortunately the nurse did measure and gave him apple juice, but he could have gone into a severe coma if he had continued. So our instrument, of course, can give an alarm, and also it can take over the job for the nurse of measuring the blood glucose, and also to tell her, now you need to increase insulin, now you need to decrease insulin, and we can even go onto the pump and tell the pump directly, putting actually the nurse free for doing other tasks. Now there has been studies showing that if you do control blood glucose correctly, you can lower mortality by 30% or more, you can lower morbidity by 40% or more, and you can also shorten the length of stay up to one day. And if you Google what's the cost of an ICU patient, we take one with sepsis because that's our first market segment, you will see that it can be at least cost the hospital $1,500 per day to do this. So they save actually by doing a better job at glucose control, they can save up to maybe $2,000 per day. And our instrument is about, they would have to pay 300 euros to apply it. So it's really a good return on their investment by using our instrument. So how do we do it? As I said, we are measuring the glucose continuously, and then we have an algorithm. It's quite an advanced algorithm, but the time scales here are slow. You're talking 30 minutes or something like that. So compared to other control tasks you have in industry, this is not very difficult. And it's also being done now for diabetes type 1 patients with a pump and a continuous sensor. So the algorithm calculates how much insulin should the pump give and gives information to the pump, or if the hospital prefers, tells the nurse what to do with the insulin rate. Now here also, as in the previous talk, we have a nice big market potential. If you just look at our entry segment, which is the sepsis market, it's about 25% of 10 million ICU patients in the US and in Europe combined. We are charging per patient, they need 1.5 consumable, so they will need $480 per patient, and that gives us a market potential of over 1 billion euros. And we are approaching the capital market right now. We had an EU grant, Horizon 2, of 2.5 million this May. And now we are slowly starting the project, but to finalize it, we need additional funding of 1.9 million euros. And we will achieve the CE mark with that. And then we will prepare an outcome study, which unfortunately will be quite expensive. But also this will show that we can deliver on mortality, morbidity, and also on the costs. And there an additional 8 million euros are waiting for us. But we need to do the EU project first. And of course, investors will receive equity stakes, board position, and also outcome study upside. And we also have quite a few interested companies. The obvious owner of this is a company that has the pump, because then they can do a control loop around the pump. So we're talking a lot to pump manufacturers, and one of these days we will team up and be a partner of one of those. So thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you for this this highly interesting presentation. I think 10 years after the data from Van der Berg, the Dutch data of the lower the better in intensive care unit, and realizing that hypoglycemia might as well be very important with regards to mortality, this is a very interesting approach. Is the algorithm behind it, is this like a deep learning algorithm, machine learning algorithm?
It's not really necessary. It's more advanced than a normal PID that you use in thermostats. But it's a modern mathematics, but it's not really a demanding regulatory task. I've been 28 years with a company, Danfoss, in Denmark, and we could do this with our own engineers. It's a really not very advanced, but we are having a nice algorithm that will make sure we don't get into any trouble.
And if you look at the daily care routine on an intensive care unit, how much time would such a system require from the nurses?
This system will actually only require one blood sample at midnight to calibrate the sensor. One blood sample per day. And if you have a sepsis patient with fluctuations like I showed, you would need to take one blood sample per hour and calculate and find out how much insulin should I give, discuss with doctors, colleagues, and so on. And so we're taking quite a bit of labor away from the ICU nurses.
Panel?
What exactly is the uniqueness? I mean, other people might also have the idea of continuous glucose measurement intravenously. So what is the uniqueness and how is it protected?
Yes, we have, I think it's 9 active patent families. Several of the patents have been given. And the uniqueness is not really the basic technology. We are using microdialysis, which is quite well known, but we have managed to go down in dimensions of our probe so that it fits into an existing central venous catheter that the ICU patients have anyway. So we don't need any surgery or anything of that sort, and you can wait and see if this patient does really need this device, and then you can apply it in you need to make a small sterile microenvironment around the central venous catheter, and then we have an aid that will just put it in like it was a guide wire.
I like the approach of a device with consumables that you sell per patient. Is there room in the hospital budget for this. Adding 500 euros per patient is a lot of money, and the money saved is to the healthcare system.
Yes, that's
not to the
why
hospital.
I agree. It's a good point these days. That's why we need to see to get into big numbers. We need to see the outcome study that shows that length of stay can go down. And also, of course, we will map out how much time is saved on the blood samples, etc., etc. So it will be it could be a randomly controlled trial with a control group, with existing procedure, and then our procedure. We need the outcome study. I'm sorry about it. It's very expensive, but that's also where you create some IPR. Actually, it's my data. Anyone else would need to replicate it. They cannot just say that they do it as well as I do.
Further questions?
In terms of barriers to a barrier to adoption, I can think of one thing, which is changing the routine at the ER. That's never easy.
Yes.
And another one is the notion of alert fatigue that is often experienced if you are ever in an ER hospitalized. Everything beeps all the time.
That's right. Yeah, that's certainly a barrier, but also it's a big hassle for the nurses to take all those blood samples and to look into the department's protocol. Now, the last one was here. This one is here. Am I sure the next one will be here? Or did he just get something to eat so it will be here? So I need to program for a new blood sample in 1 hour, and I don't have time for that, and I need to tell the next nurse because my shift is over, etc., etc. It's certainly a big hassle to follow these patients, and you can die from, if you forget a blood sample and blood glucose is on the way down, the patient can pass away.
Well, thank you very much for this interesting presentation. I would like to ask Coloxia from the UK on the stage.
Hi. Hello. Hi. My name's Javid Khan, and I'm the founder of Holoxica, which is a deep tech company based in Edinburgh in Scotland. And we specialize in holographic 3D visualization. Holographic technology doesn't require glasses or any eyewear, and images appear in free space, just like Star Wars. So the problem we're trying to solve is the visualization of information coming from medical scanners like MRI and CT. These use some kind of energy to go through your body, and they build up slices, just like a loaf of bread, through your body. And in fact, doctors, clinicians, physicians, and surgeons struggle to mentally visualize this stack of data, and they're usually presented with individual two-dimensional slices. They try to use 3D glasses, and you can do that in some places around here, but this is ultimately unsatisfactory. And our solution basically takes these slices and converts them into a stack of light. Our technology has been developed over the past 6 or 7 years. We started with making very simple displays, and we've been progressing almost exponentially over the past 6-7 years. Our technology is patented. We have one granted patent and a second one that's well underway, and another one that will be filed soon, and another one next year. We also have a lot of IP in image processing, signal processing, and algorithms, and quite a lot of software. So our technology is actually positioned beyond the current augmented and virtual reality solutions that you will find, which are based on some kind of eyewear, so helmet and goggles and glasses. It is actually quite difficult to produce images in free space. And This technology is still quite early stage in the sense that there aren't many companies worldwide working on it. Most of the work you'll find will tend to be in the military, supported by the US Department of Defense. But there are a couple of smaller companies working on this kind of technology. It's a billion-dollar market, $4 billion by 2020, and growing quite rapidly. It's a medical visualization market. It's driven partially by the availability and ubiquity of scanners. There are several 100,000 of those installed around the world. The applications that we're looking at in the first instance are teaching and training in medical schools and teaching hospitals. For that, you don't need clinical validated parts. In the second instance, we're looking at surgical planning. And then finally, clinical products which require approvals. The benefits of this technology, of our technology, are that apart from not having to wear glasses or strange things over your face, you can interpret the images much faster, typically about 40% faster for CT and MRI scans. It's about 75% better than two-dimensional visualization. And if you use it for navigation, incisions around the body, it's about between 15 to 20% faster and better. We don't work in isolation. We have a network of partners and customers, including Siemens Healthcare and around 14 institutions around Europe. And we're engaged directly with over 40 medical professionals in a number of disciplines which are in our network. Our business model really is to sell physical products. They're priced between 50 and 70,000 euros. We aim to sell the units between 100 to thousands, and we're looking at revenues of over 75 million by year 5. We have a strong team with over 30 person years of experience in photonics engineering, display technologies, biomedical devices, medical imaging, and 3D graphics. And we also have an advisory board which comprises of a lot of professionals in this sector. So we're looking for 12 million over the next 5 years. We need 5.3 million euros to get to the next milestone, which is to start selling these displays to the markets I mentioned. We raised 1.3 million euro from an SME instrument grant, but we're now asking investors for 4 million to get to the next milestone. And we also have support from the Scottish Investment Bank, which could match any investor money by up to 1 million, maybe more. And we're looking at a Series A investment of 7 million from the third year. So far, we've been working very lean, and we've spent about 1.7 million. That's our roadmap and action plan in terms of the products we have in mind and the intermediate milestones. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe the first question from the clinical side. Have you actually cooperated with a surgeon who actually used the device for planning?
They haven't used our device because we're still building it, but the short answer is yes. They use all these other technologies, and not just one surgeon, but about 4, 5 in our network, including maxillofacial surgery, internal medicine, dental implant surgery, and heart.
And are you cooperating with a 3D printer, or is it?
Very good question. Yes, people ask us that, but there are other companies that are much better than we are at doing 3D printing. But it's a complementary thing. A 3D printer will produce something in half a day or a day, Whereas this is really visualization, so it's a matter of milliseconds. We pull the data from a DICOM PACS database, and you just see it, and it's just there. You just download it to the device.
You mentioned a couple of efficiency data in terms of reduction of time in diagnostics or better comprehension of the image. Can you tell us more about where does that data come from, and if you run studies about improvement in diagnostics thanks to the tool?
So very good question, thank you. This data does not come from us, it's published works. The first one is from the US Air Force Research Laboratory. The second one is actually from some competitors. And the third one is from Fraunhofer. So there's a couple of sources for this. I can give you the references.
All right, but for a similar technology?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
When looking at imaging, I was under the impression that the big driving force currently is resolution rather than three-dimensional pictures. Are you having to, I mean, is this also a solution to better resolution if you look at very confined elements you want to pick up?
Again, an excellent question. Thank you. That is a very good point. Resolution is really an issue for other types of 3D visualization, like movies and games. As is frames per second. The resolution really is defined by the performance of the scanner. And so, and for our kind of systems, it has a big impact on the cost. So we are not engineering solutions that are substantially better than the performance of the scanner. So for example, if the scanner has 10 million voxels or 3D pixels, then we're not going to make one for 100 million because the cost would be 10 times as much.
If I'm a surgeon or a radiologist who is used to look at one-dimensional, two-dimensional slides, so do I have to change the way how I look at things, and do we have to educate them?
Again, another excellent, I'm getting beaten up here. Right, yes, very good. The short answer is yes, of course. As surgeons, less so, because they are very eager and keen to, they don't have time to look at images, and they certainly don't have the inclination to refer to radiologists every time they see something. They just want to get on with the job, as I'm sure everybody knows here. As for radiologists, there it's a matter of education. Yes, you're absolutely right. And the only way to address that is to start at the top and work with the teaching hospital that teaches radiology. And that's exactly what we do. And one of our board members, advisory board members, is the director of the Clinical Research Imaging Centre of Edinburgh University.
Maybe a final comment. I mean, if you look at the developments in radiology, companies like Zebra, who introduced artificial intelligence in diagnostics, one can imagine that in the future, or the near future, let's say 70% of all images are being diagnosed by a machine, and 30 are left for the physician. So there's a clear, scalable business model, if you will. This is something you're talking about teaching. It's not really scalable. It's not really sort of saving staff. How would you argue someone coming up, or is this something in Zebra?
This is analysis versus visualization, really. So I think those technologies are complementary to what we're doing. So it's fine to go away and find, say, a tumor, but then you have to do something with it, and usually it's a human that's going to do something with it. Until you get robotic surgery, I think we're going to be in business with our clinical version.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we've got the second company on diabetes or on blood sugar today. I may ask Angel Cloud from Spain to the stage, and we're looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Hello. Hola. Hello. Okay. Hello. Thank you so much. Well, I'm José Luis López. I'm the CEO of Insult Clock. Insulclock is a company focuses to develop technological solutions to improve the quality and the expectancy of life of the diabetic patient, especially in chronic patients and especially in diabetic patients. So let's go to talk about one of the most important pandemic of the 21st century, diabetes. With 415 million of diabetic people in the world, one of every 10 citizens. And according to the World Health Organization, we are going to be 640 in 2035. It's huge. Today is a great day. Today is a blue day. Today is, because I wear on blue, today is the World Diabetes Day. And please, may I ask you a clap for these million of diabetic patients that has diabetes, please. Thank you so much. And I say thank you because I'm a diabetic patient. Like my little sister, I'm a diabetic patient since 20 years ago. My little sister became diabetic when she was 9. And it's funny because everybody thinks that the hard part of my disease is the injection, but it's not true. The hard part of my disease, how can we manage our disease? The adherence, amputation, blindness, even the death, is not because of diabetes. It's because of lack of care. And that's the problem. It's bigger in elderly people, dependent people, and pediatric people. So think about your children. All this problem we solve with Insulclock. What is Insulclock? Insulclock is a system based in this device. It's joined in the insulin pen. Very easy. And when you inject your insulin, you keep vital information for me, like a diabetic patient, like when you inject your insulin, the amount of insulin, and the type of insulin. And all this information is sent into the app, and to the app to the cloud. With this, you can check in real time, you as a patient, your caregiver, even your doctor, and you can have awareness, an alarm, to check all your information with the sewer. What we are doing now, we are testing our product. We are making several clinical trials, very, very important clinical trials. We started last month in Atlanta, in New York, in Atlanta, in United States, with the University of Emory, with one of the most important team of diabetes type 2 in the world, one clinical trial. The others is here in Europe with the healthcare government in Spain, and with one of the most important hospitals in Spain called Jimenez Diaz Foundation. And this is one, these several government, hospital, and big pharmacy that we are collaborating with him and with them. And thanks to them, we have reached 2.5 million of funds without leave any bit of our equity. So we keep our equity at all. And we want to make in market in 2018. And we are looking for here and now a strategic partner to help us to landing in Europe, in USA, to internationalize our system. And this is the team. This is not my team. This is my family. I spend a lot of time with them. This is an extremely professional team, and that is the guilty that this system works perfect, and we are going to internationalize. A lot of people of engineer, electronic engineer, a marvelous medical advisor with a very, very famous, international famous, and with nine startups in our back, with a lot of important executive power and software knowledge. So thank you so much. And to finish that, remember, one of every 10 citizens are diabetic. Insulclock is a real solution, solving a real problem. We are going to help to 1 million of diabetic patients in the world, and we are based in a business model highly profitable. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this presentation. I would like to be a bit provocative to start with. Diabetics and technology is in so far a bit difficult, as those who are adherent with a good HbA1c will actually use the system. Those with an HbA1c 9 and more will probably not use the system because they're ignorant of their disease and simply like someone else to manage their disease. How do you deal with that?
Well, is that because it's all automatically? You don't need do anything. You only join the insulin pen and you forget it. That's in our clinical trial. We have two arms. One arm with all alarms and all blind to the patient, and the patient don't need to do anything, only to charge. That's it. So with the problem with the diabetic people like me is I'm going to the doctor. I said, oh my God, I need to fill all my diabetic diary. It's a diary very, very hard to fill, and this really sorry for us. But this is because this all is automatically and all you don't need fill and do anything.
Your big claim is that you can increase adherence. Do you have data which show that you have increased in adherence?
Now we start very, very soon now, but it's possible our first clinical trial finish in 1 year, but in 2 months we are going to have data about this, and now all the sensation of the team of the endocrinologist said that it's very, very extremely useful. We are going to.
I actually have 2 questions. The first one is, I think the space of connected insulin pen or connected cap for insulin start to be crowded, or at least there are many players, and pharma is also trying to develop their own. So first of all, how do you differentiate yourself compared to those players? And the second question is, insulin tracking is only one piece of the puzzle in diabetes management. So what is your roadmap in closing the loop?
Okay, the first one, yes. Not a lot, but some companies think about some functions, okay? Some record the units, for example, but they have a big problem. The problem is the healthcare is not pay the pens, is only pay the insulin. So you can make a very hard insulin pen, but the big company must to pay this, not the healthcare. So we speak and we have advantage conversation with a big pharmacy like Novo, Sanofi, and Lilly. Sanofi is not better than it's not very advantageous the conversation, but with Lilly and Novo, yes. And they said that it's not their core. It's not their core because they only must concentrate in focuses in make insulin, and it's very difficult to change for the endocrinologist the insulin for a patient, because if you oblige a patient to pay a huge amount of money for this intelligent insulin pen, when you want to change the other insulin, the patient said no. Why? Because I pay a lot for this insulin pen. So this is a very, very big problem. With this, it has an universal smart pen, and you can throw out the insulin pen, and you can use with every insulin pen that you have in the market, the 99%. And the second one, I forget. Sorry. Close the loop. Okay, very, very close, because the most important thing for for a diabetic patient is when you inject your insulin, the amount of insulin, the type of insulin, and the glucose blood in your glucose in your blood. The third first, we have automatically with Ensor Clock. The fourth, we are in conversation very advantage. That's why, because we are here to make a partnership, a relationship, and to speak with glucose manufacturer to share the data. When with this data, we close the loop, we close this circle, and we have every data that I want to do and I need to manage my disease and increase the adherence and lower the H1B.
Very, very short comment. Every diabetes program I worked with, even ones that gave everything for free, behavior change was incredibly difficult for patients. So that's just something to keep in mind. Even if the product is wonderful, changing the behavior of the patients is an incredible challenge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for this presentation. Good round of applause. Thank you. Now we'd like to ask Mint Labs to come to the stage. Hello.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me well? Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm Paulo Rodriguez. Good morning, everybody. I'm one of the founders and CEO of Qmenta, which is formerly known as Mint Labs. So that might be the confusion in the brochures. And today I'm going to speak to you about the brain. So scientific reports claim that 1/3 of the population will be affected by a brain disease like Alzheimer, Parkinson, multiple sclerosis, OCD. There's many. Population is living longer and longer, so brain diseases are becoming the crucial problem in healthcare. And the other fact is that most of these diseases are still incurable. So pharma is actively working on this problem, finding a cure for Alzheimer, for instance, but it costs 2.2 billion euros in average to develop a new treatment, a new drug for the brain. And this is mainly due to the huge amount of failures. 95% of new potential drugs never reach the shelf. So the main problem behind this is that there has been a lack of a way to look inside the brain, to measure what's happening there. Okay, so there are two basic problems. On one side, as we heard today, there's radiology. There are incredible machines like MRI machines that acquire thousands and thousands of pictures of inside of the brain. However, as we can see here in this example, we have a healthy brain and a diseased brain. But can you spot which is which? Where is the problem here? Well, this tiny, slightly darker spot is a lesion in the white matter in the connections in this patient with multiple sclerosis. Now imagine an expert having to look at thousands of images like this in their screen and trying to find problems. Most of the times, more often than not, 70–80% of times, things are missed in the pictures. So we need computational tools to analyze this data for us. And on the other side, the other big problem is the workflow, the ecosystem is very fragmented, it's very complex, in fact. So typically, images come from the MRI scanners that are in different sites, in different countries, with different jurisdictions. Can we send data or not? Data is often sent even with CDs. That goes to the contract research organizations. There they have experts, neurologists, that have to look at these images manually, exchange CDs, exchange Excel sheets. So it's all a very big mess in that aspect. So what we do at Qmenta is provide a cloud platform, compliant, safe, secure, HIPAA compliant, EU privacy regulations compliant as well, FDA, that allows very easily data transfer from the sites, from the machines into the cloud, where the different stakeholders can collaborate, and on top of that, analyze automatically the data. So for the example that I had before with a patient with MS, the 2D images, what we do is having algorithms that convert those images into this kind of 3D maps where we can see inside the brain how is this patient's brain connected in itself. So these colorful lines are the fibers inside the patient's brain. And we can see the red boxes that appear now, the multiple sclerosis lesions. So the expert has in its hands the tools to measure where is the damage, how big it is, what is it affecting, and is it changing or not across time with the progress of the disease and the treatment. We incorporated in 2013. We launched our platform in the cloud online since 2015. And we are currently almost enabling 1 million brain scans in our platform. We already have 618,000 euros of revenue for this year. We have a couple more deals that we will probably close during the year. And our goal, our aim, we expect to be self-sufficient by the end of next year and grow the amount of data and to work with more and more clients like Bayer, for instance, or Cedars-Sinai, a huge center in US, and other many centers in Europe as well. Our model is also very simple. Our revenue model is a pay per analysis, basically, and we enable also packages, bundles of analysis, or monthly subscriptions that scale also with the amount of usage. So typically 5,000 per month. Behind Mint Labs is a team of experts in brain imaging. Myself and Vesna, we started in 2013. We did our PhDs in the field. We suffered a bit what it means dealing with data, with algorithms, all this mess. So we are now based from Barcelona and Boston. We are 21 people, experts in medical image processing, neuroimaging, software, business, sales, so the different components. And we're very proud as well of having partners, industry partners like Google and Amazon, and investors and advisors like Walter Gilbert, co-founder of Biogen. Chris is from McKinsey. Michael Fox is a neurologist in Harvard Medical School. And in the beginning of this year, we closed a seed round, pre-Series A round of 3 million euros in the beginning of this year that allow us to grow and to continue in our aim and our vision to becoming let's say, gold standard of a brain analytics platform in the clouds. And we did to enable perhaps the cure for some of these diseases like Alzheimer, which are a huge problem that is becoming even bigger. So we are currently not raising funds, but always happy to have conversations and to talk with people about the brain and brain diseases. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Just to clarify from the beginning, what is the key asset? Is that the million brain images in the cloud, which you can then analyze? What's the key asset of the company?
That's the value that we are creating as we are providing a platform that enables data transfer and the automatic analysis of the data. So there's 3 aspects that we're promoting. So it's a tool that enables the work of experts, pharma, clinical trials, to transfer data and analyze it without any manual expertise, so providing the tools to help with the work of the experts. So in that aspect, there's an IT solution with also unique algorithms that we're providing. We are patenting. We have already 2 patents pending. So we have common tools and unique tools. But as we're doing this and generating revenue as well, we are creating a huge database of examples of these are brains that have Alzheimer, these are brains that have Parkinson and different diseases. So we are actually building the value, is building a database to create the tools to figure out, is this a healthy brain or not?
Questions?
I would think that this is very powerful as a research and development tool for pharma. Once you want to go into clinics, is there already a strategy to manage the regulatory burden, which I think with the now with the DMR, the medical device regulation could be nightmarish?
Yeah, excellent question. So our strategy is exactly that. So we have been approaching research, clinical research, so being a tool to be used by the investigators, the neurologists that have patient data and they need to, they're trying to figure out what's happening with the disease. And these are also the key opinion leaders. So by working with them, we are partners with them, so we get embedded into clinical trials, as you well said. So in investigator-initiated trials, phase 2 with imaging, so we're transitioning them to clinical trials. And as we're doing this as well, we are validating the algorithms, and then the key ones, the imaging markers that have potential to have a clinical outcome, then we will face the regulatory path. So for now, our main aspect is that we are compliant to data transfer, so the compliance part of security and the platform, but not the medical device, CE mark or FDA. But that will come in the future, and we are already, not so much, because we are already supporting decision in some clinical applications, so not for diagnostics, but helping.
Are you changing the diagnosis of the doctors in any way, or is it just a different type of visualization? Of course, it's stronger if you change diagnosis, but then your regulatory path becomes much more complicated, and you need to validate the outcome or the result.
So that's related to the previous question. So now we support the decision. So there's an application, for instance, for TBI. So in United States, there's one center specifically that receives patients with mild trauma or traumatic brain injury. So they are using our algorithms to support the decision to help speed up their own process to figure that out. So we're not giving a diagnosis, but being supportive, giving more evidence to the clinician to make that decision. But in the near future, or longer future, then these specific markers then will go through the regulatory path for clinical use at point of care.
One question from my side. So what we see in this area is that people who do this analysis, then later on, they want to look at their regular screen, want to look at their iPad or whatever. Do you need special equipment for it, for your analysis, or can you do it with any, imaging device, with any device, any screen?
Yeah, so it's a software tool. So we receive the images from the special equipment, which are the scanners, the MRI scanners or CT or PET. So right now we're focusing on MRI. And those images are transferred to the cloud and analyzed in these servers. And then they receive, in the end, the reports. And doctors, if they receive a report that says green, good, red, bad, that's the whole goal, having a number in the end that supports that decision. So with that aspect, any devices are used to interact with the platform.
But the person who did the gesture movement. So
that's visualization. So especially for neurosurgery, that's a very powerful tool to interact and so neurosurgeons, they are very, they have to imagine how is the brain connected in that particular patient. So what we provide them is the actual virtual brain, so then they can explore where should they enter. So it's another visualization / application that derives from creating 3D models and measuring where is the brain, what are the connections that are in danger, and giving the tool to then support the neurosurgeon. So that's one component.
Maybe one last technical scenario. So you're cooperating with Amazon, and how does this scenario works? German hospital in Spain, send pictures to the States for Amazon. How does it practically work in cooperation with doctors and patients?
That's another great question, actually, and I'll give an example. One of our customers is a multi-site study with centers in Europe, and some of them are in Germany, and there's absolutely no problem because we have a hybrid cloud. So although it's Amazon, but we make sure that we use the data center in the country of that site. So for the user, there's no, it's seamless. They don't really see that, but we make sure that the data from Germany stays in Germany, it's analyzed in Germany, from Spain in Spain, and so on.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, the next company is coming from Spain, Protein Alternatives.
Hello, you hear me? Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm Juan Ignacio Imbau, the Laboratory Director of Protein Alternative. Our company is a young biotech company located in Spain, focused in the development of innovative products for early diagnosis of colorectal cancer and also therapeutic antibodies for the treatment of metastatic disease, mainly colorectal and melanoma. Here I will present you the project ColoDetect. The main problem of colorectal cancer is early diagnostic and unmet need. When the tumor appears, normally we have up to 1 million new cases per year in worldwide. Half of the people die, so this is one of the main problems of the pathology. And only 35% of colorectal cancer are diagnosed at early stage when the tumor is still asymptomatic. So early detection programs are essential to decrease mortality around 30 to 35%. High mortality rates are directly related to limitations in current diagnostic tools. Often, we detect the pathology when the symptoms appear. This is too late, and delayed diagnosis is associated with poor prognosis. If you study the high complexity technologies like colonoscopy, resonance, or tomography, they have good detection capacity, but those methods sometimes are invasive and other times are complex or require sophisticated equipment and are expensive. So there is also a limitation in the number of trials you can do per day. Those diagnostic tools are not suitable for screening purposes. And on the other side, low complexity technologies are ideal for this application because they are no invasive, easy to use, and low cost. But the problem with current tests in use, that is the fecal occult blood test, it has very low sensitivity and specificity. So this poor detection capacity is responsible of the low adhesion rates we are seeing in the screening programs worldwide. And so the aim of Protein Alternative was to develop a blood test, not invasive, low cost, and easy to use, with good detection capability in order to try to detect the pathology at very early stage. And with this improved early detection, we can reduce the number of people who die. This is a summary above ColoDetect test. ColoDetect is is a project funded by Phase 2 SME instrument from the European Commission. Basically, it consists of a simple blood extraction. We can measure in a small volume of the blood a reduced number of biomarkers, and analyzing the biomarkers, we can detect the pathology at a very early stage. The key advantages of our test is that allow early diagnostics, are easy to use, accurate, low cost. It only requires one simple blood extraction, and it is a non-invasive test, and it does not require any patient preparation so far. So, concerning the market estimation, our internal analysis, considering the risk group, men and women from 50 to 75 years old, and assuming a screening rate of between 4 people once a year, you have a potential market of 33 million tests per year, amounting to 2.8 billion euros. So our company is now looking for investor. As I mentioned at the beginning, the company is focusing diagnostic and therapeutic projects, and total capital needs for next 3 years is up to 5 million euros. And concerning this specific product, ColoDetect, we need 1.5 million for completing clinical validation, quality system implementation, and CE marking, launching expensive promotional activities, and staff recruitment. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and here we are.
Thank you very much. Big round of applause. Well, first of all, we do have a screening tool established in Germany. That's the colonoscopy from age 55 year onwards. And if you would introduce a new tool, to put it that way, that should first of all be better than the status quo. And of course, the challenge is that you destroy the business model of thousands of gastroenterologists in Germany.
Well, sorry, this is an interesting question, but in fact, this is not the truth. What is happening now is that after you have first you have a result in stool, and only 3% of the positive results are real colorectal cancer. So with our test, you can detect the pathology in blood early, but the number of colonoscopies that will be performed by the specialist will be focused on the real positive, not on false positives. So we don't expect a reduction in the number of colonoscopies. We expect a segmentation or a well-directed request of the probe.
Questions?
Yeah. You haven't shown performance data. I guess it's because you don't have it yet, right? Performance data of the test?
Yes.
You don't have that yet, right? So if your test is not going to be perfect, what sensitivity and specificity are you aiming for? How much do you need, you believe, to be successful in the market? And if you have to choose between the two, are you going to go for more sensitivity or more specificity?
Well, that's a good question. We have preliminary data showing that our test is up to 80% in sensitivity and specificity. But we need to conclude the clinical validation to have the final result. There are no tests in blood with this value, so we are over the test. And the main advantages of our test is that we are detecting autoantibodies. When the tumor appears, the own body generates autoantibodies. The autoantibodies are stable molecules that appear early and at a higher level compared to another biomarker. So this the main advantage that allows us to detect the pathology when another test fails.
Can you say something about your assay? So if you have a test with assay with antibodies as biomarkers, so the production of the test is sort of relatively costly. So what would be the price of the test, and how many patients you can bring per 96 well plate?
Well, the assay we are using now a 96 well plate, so you can perform up to near 100 tests, 200 tests per day, only with one machine. The cost is reduced because it's a multiplex. We are only measuring a reduced number of biomarkers. Right now we are working with 6 to 8 biomarkers, and the cost, we don't have the high-scale production cost, but the cost will be reduced, probably less than 20 euro. And our business model is to sell the kit in the selling price could be 90 euro.
So it's one patient per plate.
96 patient per plate. One wheel, one patient.
So I understand the business model is that you sell to clinics. What problem are you solving them? Because right now people either come in for colonoscopy or they do the fecal blood test, which isn't very good. But what's the pain point for the clinic that will make them buy the machine and pay for it?
Well, initially our business plan is to offer a service in Spain, and once the kit is robust enough to sell the kits in Europe. Our idea is to start working with the private security system first, and then to introduce the kit in the national healthcare system.
Further questions? Well, thank you very much for this interesting presentation.
Thank you.
And now we have got Quibim from Spain. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, we would like to thank you, the organization, for giving us the opportunity to present our company to all the audience. My name is Encarna. I am the chief operating in Quibim. And let me show you that there is an amount of information hidden in the images that hidden for the human eye that can be extracted by applying innovative and disruptive technologies. And something similar happens in medical imaging. Let's see an example. Prostate cancer is a heterogeneous and multifocal disease with different manifestations in that kind of morphometric manifestation in that kind of images. Radiologists usually find a complex patient and they're asking us for support. Applying computational model to that kind of magnetic resonance studies, KBIM is able to quantify and map not only the vascular permeability of the tissue, but also the cellularity of the tumor, and at the end to represent in the red the more aggressive and the suspicious malignant region in the prostate, in order to better diagnosis and the more accurate therapeutic decision making. And this is one example of our core business, of our KBIM core business, to convert image to data, because we think that to measure is to know. In that sense, we have developed a different image analysis tool using artificial intelligence and our proprietary algorithms in order to extract imaging biomarkers. Imaging biomarkers is additional quantitative information supporting the different steps into the patient care, from the first stage of diagnosis to characterize lesions and phenotyping, and in order to evaluating the patient treatment response. We have implemented a different solution, analysis solution, covering a wide spectrum of pathologies. And focusing in 5 clinical areas: oncology, neurology, musculoskeletal, liver, and lung diseases. We have decided to integrate all these different analysis tools into a cloud-based platform. This platform, KBIM Precision, is a marketplace with different applications in advanced image analysis application. KBIM Precision is accessible from any computer with internet, is available to any radiologist worldwide, and it's just simple. The radiologist must upload the DICOM study into the cloud, click on the Start Analysis button of the imaging biomarker required, and once the analysis is finished, they can generate a structured report with the most relevant results of the analysis. But the most important is that we have included a data miner tool to allow the user to perform their own statistics analysis into a group of patients in order to find tendencies, to find correlation with clinical endpoints, to find clinical groups, and this is all inside the KBIM Precision Cloud platform. It's a platform really versatile because they can be integrated into the clinical routine. They are fully operated with the PAC system of the hospitals. And also we found that this platform is a really useful tool for pharma companies involved in clinical trials as a real-time clinical trials monitoring. This is some of our metrics. We have started in 5 hospitals. We are involved in 4 clinical trials with 1,000 patients and 37 surgeons involved. And the total fundraise in the last year is 1.98 million euros. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any doubts or comments, please.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I'm just wondering, what criteria do you have to focus on the prostate or on specific other organs? I would think, for me, it would make sense to focus as a business model to, let's say, the butter and bread business for radiologists, let's say CT and scan of the lung and look for a bronchial carcinoma. So are you more focusing on clinical trials? Are you more on the day-to-day business in hospital?
Okay, as we are a startup and the company was founded in 2012 between the co-founders, a radiologist and an engineering. Then the first step is to focus on radiologists and to focus in clinical routine. But the truth is that I'm focusing all the pathologies because we have developed a lot of scientific experience in all these years because in 2012 the company found, but the real point to start the company is 2014 when the company is grow and more people coming into the company. Then the real point is that we think that the health is involved in all the different areas of the body. Then if we have the tools to give the quantitative imaging biomarkers to every clinician, and not matter if it's oncology or if it's lung emphysema, we can do it. Then why not? The truth is that we are proactive in some because we are preparing the FDA certification. Then we are proactive in some areas. But if we have developed the tools and we have the technology to integrate in the platform, why don't do that? Clinical trials is like a surprise because when we are talking with the pharma companies and clinical trials, they are more interested in the tool as a centralized tool to every image study, and they don't know and don't. In that point, they don't not worry about the imaging biomarkers. They want to use the platform to have a real-time monitoring of the different patients that are controlled in different centers, and that's the truth. Imaging biomarkers, it's part of the scientists involved in the clinical trials, and it's also a way to show our tools to the clinician, that is the real users and real users of these solutions.
I heard the word marketplace in your presentation. Does that mean that you and other companies can plug in new algorithms? And as a clinician, do I pay per analysis, or do you run all the algorithms and see if one of them comes up with a result?
Okay, the point is that it's a marketplace. We want to add that concept because we have included a tool inside the platform that every scientist that want to put the tool inside can do that. But it's like the future. The real point is that actually we have developed the tool to do that, and we are using to incorporate the new version of our algorithms, and we have write like a protocol how these algorithms must write in which language, which technology must be used by the scientists, by the third parties, but we are using in our own. It's not actually, we are not have third parties including the plugins into our platform.
My question is related to Christians. What is the business model? So who would pay for it? So what's the product?
Okay.
What am I going to pay for?
Okay, the business model, the cloud version, the cloud platform is a paper analysis. We have the person can enter their account, just clicking in the start analysis, and they receive a bill after 1 month, or depending on the contract, and it's paper analysis. In hospital, we have a pay a license because we find that all the different patients must have quantitative information, not only in the hospital. The clinicians want to process with quantitative information to all the patients. This is analysis, and it's unlimited analysis. It's a paper license. And in the with clinical trials, we have a model of service, the cloud platform tool, and the imaging biomarkers is like a discount because it's just for scientific part. It's not. Then they pay for the tool to real-time monitoring of the clinical trial.
So how much is the license to hospitals?
License to the hospitals, we have different versions because, for example, sometimes the oncologists is the only that are interested in imaging biomarkers, but the installation of our server, it's 10,000 with one plugin. And later, if there are more clinicians or radiologists of other areas interest, it's 1,000 per new plugin into the platform. And also, we have an enterprise solution with all the different biomarkers, and it's 30,000 per year. And then it's a maintenance. But
well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we've got the last presentation for today, wireless sensor networks from Italy.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to present Creo2 in auto-adaptive telemetric control of oxygen delivery for therapy optimization and adherence. My name is Matteo Crescini. I'm Managing Director of WSN for Life. It is an engineering company based in Milano. Progressive lung disease affects 10% of the population in Europe, and incident rates is on the rise. Long-term oxygen therapy is the most effective treatment, but has low adherence and has increased in complexity over the year with new technology. Creo2 provides a simple and most effective architecture. I'm going to explain it later. Our solution is both auto-adaptive and wearable. Auto-adaptive because Creo2 and patient dialogue and exchange information to drive portable oxygen unit behavior automatically. And wearable because Creo2 is small in size and perfectly fits in patient oxygen stroller and on patient. That gives three benefits: to the patient, to the doctor, and to the national health care system. To the patient, it optimizes oxygen delivery. To the doctor, increases therapy compliance. And to national health care system, switches to pay-per-use model. Technical milestone, as far as these are concerned, this is how we are. We signed a grant agreement for Phase 1, Horizon 2020, so thank you for the opportunity again. We are planning to close the first clinical trial in a big hospital in Rome, in Italy, by end of 2018. In the middle, what we are working is to miniaturize the solution and adapt it to the industry. My company is working there are mainly 5 industry producer of oxygen tanks. We're working on 2 of them. So what we're doing in 2018 is to adapt to the rest of 2, so that we have all the industry compliant with our solution. Then, at the end, the reason we are here, first of all, because we want to learn, so it's a pleasure to have listening to people that invest. And second, we are looking for strategic partnership. That means, in our standpoint, we look at 3 axes. First of all, is the miniaturization process would be faster if we outsource it. Second, the clinical trial, we would like to partner to do it also in other countries of Europe, apart from Italy, of course. And the industry, because we want to use it in outside Italy. So we want to test this solution with other industry in the field. So this is mainly our solution. I thank you very much and wait for your questions.
Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
I must confess, I really haven't understood the problem so far. So if you have the typical blue bloater who requires 1 or 2 liters, 1 liter oxygen per minute, he will tell you if he needs more or if the oxygen is over. And I haven't understood the bit about compliance with doctors.
Yeah,
so where's the problem?
Okay. So now the portable oxygen unit have a fixed amount of oxygen flow that goes mechanically driven. So the patient moves it from 0 to 15 liters per meter. So first of all, our solution aims to make this mechanism automatically, and secondly, to be changed by the status of the patient. So the solution measures the patient status and drives the changing of the flux. This is the first issue. So it's automatically and not mechanically.
But sorry. We are talking in Germany about compressors, which they have got at home. And
concentrator, you mean?
Yeah, I haven't really understood. I mean, if I've got the typical blue bloater patient at home who's, let's say, 12 hours a day or 14 hours a day sitting in his living room and not really doing the run to the supermarket, where's the clinical implication?
That's the point, and my fault I didn't explain better. The point is that people with oxygen treatment needs to move to make the treatment faster absorbed, and second, they need to communicate the status so that the therapy is depending on the status of the patient. Now what's happened? People stay in home and don't move. So first of all, we want people to move, so they don't stay with the concentrator at home. Second, we want to make the oxygen delivery perfectly dependable on the patient status. Now it's not this way. Now it's fixed, so you have either it's a concentrator like in Germany, or is not a concentrator but a base for oxygen liquid in Italy or in France. The point is that now it's fixed amount. So if it starts with 5.
But isn't the problem that oxygen therapy has its limitation with severe COPD? So you can push as much oxygen you want, and the patient still doesn't improve because the COPD is so advanced. So there's also some limitation with the therapy itself.
Correct. The only treatment, the best treatment for people with COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, is long-term oxygen therapy. This is the most effective, at least what we are addressing it. What is missing in the picture is that the fixed amount of oxygen provided, it's not compared with the status of the patient, later. And this gives 3 different points that we can address to better the architecture. First of all, you can use a pay-per-use model. That means that you don't provide as much as oxygen as you want, but you provide it for the right amount. This is an issue. Second, what we are addressing as an engineering company is the changing behavior of the medical device depending on the status of the patient. So the idea is that we want the medical device to react to the status of the patient. So this is a second.
Can I just interfere for 1 second?
Okay.
Does it do it automatically? Where is the clinician's input? Basically, you have an AI, an algorithm that measures the status by some parameters and then determines how much oxygen to give?
Yeah, this is the algorithm is in the MEMS, the microelectromechanical system inside our solution, and is driven by the clinical trial that we are addressing this year. And second, it is also it happens like this with the oxygen treatment of patient. The first months, you provide the right amount of oxygen for the prescription. Then you send people home. What we want to do is that we use the system both in the hospital to optimize the level and at home. But mainly we want to make it so that it is automatically. So I hope I clear all the issues.
Maybe I still don't get it. I would have assumed that something like this is specifically useful in combined therapy, when you combine ventilation with oxygen, where you need to titrate various ways of algorithm. I think in pure oxygen, I'm not so sure that you need this type of sophistication to improve outcome.
Really, it seems sophisticated, but the cost is less than what we are selling. Now we are selling at, let's say, 10. We will provide it at 9. So it's just the difference in the provisioning of the oxygen. But we want to make it smarter so that the provision is related. And to answer, that is a correct question. The point is that I want to make so that the SpO2, that is the measurement of how the patient is reacting to the oxygen therapy, I want it in the picture. Because now it's not in the picture. It's when you send people home, then you have them after 6 months, and then you judge. We want to do it continuously. This is the issue. But probably in 5 pages it's difficult to concentrate, or my simple mind makes it harder. But please, yesterday we lost the World Champion Soccer, so I'm still traumatized. Probably this is the situation that is in the page 6 of the presentation.
Well, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much to all companies presenting here. It's been really a fruitful discussion and a lot of interesting insights. Now we close the session, and we'll have a talk by Professor Miron-shatz on new insights on digital health. And afterwards, we've got the round on investment trends. And then about just about 13:50, we will have the award ceremony. Thank you very much.
Hi, thanks again. Thank you for your patience and for being here with us. I think we've seen wonderful examples of novel uses and needs in digital health. I will talk about it from maybe a slightly different perspective from what we've seen, but somehow the dots will connect. As I mentioned, I'm an academic. I do research in psychology and medical decision-making. I've been doing it for quite a while. At Wharton, at Princeton, and publishing on the topic, sometimes with this wonderful physician over here, Dr. Stefan Becker. I have considerable industry experience, and I'm mentioning that because having academic experience is just not enough when you're dealing with medical decision-making. So I have a consulting company where I work with pharma, with health advertisers. That's a wonderful way of seeing what works and what doesn't work. So when I look at, for example, diabetes interventions, I know what they look like when they commercialize and how many or how few patients will uptake the solution. There's a bunch of things that I do. You get the message. I have my own startup company, Body and Soul, with the idea being that behavior change is incredibly difficult, and in order to engage patients, we have to entice them, we have to help them in a much broader way, and we have to talk to them about their life journey, creating something that is astigmatized and brings them in not just as patients, but as people, because we are always people and we're always growing. I'm going to talk today about trends in digital health, and I'm going to start super optimistically, then I'll spoil the party a little bit, and then we'll see how we can make it better maybe for next year or years to come. So trends in digital health are basically that we're moving forward very, very fast. We're moving toward disease management more, and it looks like we're making incredible progress. Martin Pfister reminded me that the first FDA digital drug was approved today, and that's amazing news. So we are making unbelievable progress, and I'm sure he'll talk about it over the panel. Where else are we making progress? There are over 300,000 health apps. It's a phenomenal number. We've never had this many health apps. However, when you look at them, you see that they're converging. There are multiple apps. A lot of them don't get downloaded more than 5,000 times. So the market is big, but it also needs to converge. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And we're shifting toward disease management, but not completely. There's still, I'll get there. There's clinical evidence that digital health is helpful. In 2010 and 2011, people would talk about, well, there's engagement, there are downloads. They didn't talk about clinical outcomes. We're seeing many more clinical outcomes now. We're seeing systematic reviews. We're seeing the best journals addressing digital health. It's there, and it's there to stay. So this is wonderful, right? Well, it's getting there. The potential is very, very big. Use of health apps in 5 therapy areas. Diabetes is obviously one of them, but also asthma, diabetes prevention, pulmonary rehab, and cardiac rehab could produce $7 billion in savings. That's an enormous amount of money. This is, of course, based on the assumption that people will use it. What we're also noting is that there are no spillover effects. So if you create a solution for one disease area, that doesn't necessarily help in other disease areas if you think of a patient that might produce considerable burden upon them. Again, really fantastic news. Very recent article from Health IT News. Digital health has the potential to save $46 billion a year in health spending. That's a lot of money. When we look at it, we need to divide it. Who are we saving the money for? Is it for health systems? Is it for clinics? Is it for patients? When you find a paying point, you find a pain point, and then it's easier to sell to whoever is going to incur the largest savings. These are slightly older statistics, but they bring us to the point where we need to worry a little bit more and to plan a little bit better. The average age of the person using mHealth in 2013 was 35. That's not your chronic disease patient. That is someone who most likely is pretty healthy. That's why I put a red point up there, because I found it slightly worrying, potentially worrying. Do doctors recommend health apps? I have the statistics from 2013, but let's do a little survey here. Has any of you ever been recommended a health app by your doctor? If you have, please raise your hand. I'm not raising my hand because I was never recommended a digital health app. Is there anyone here at all who was recommended a health app? No one. Thank you. I hope everyone here is incredibly healthy and will always be, but are we always really incredibly healthy? I don't know. Is this the reason why we were not recommended? I'm not sure. Are we running very, very fast with digital health? And the doctors are playing a somewhat different game. What else should we be worried about? Millennials really like digital health services. Well, guess what? Millennials are usually pretty healthy people. Old people like me, who are between 35 and 54, like it a little bit less. And boomers, who are 55 and above, are not that crazy about digital health. What are you going to do when these people need it more than anyone else? What else should we worry about? Well, not really something to worry about, but it goes hand in hand with the issue of young people using digital health. What do we mean when we say digital health? Are we talking about fitness? Are we talking about how fast you run? Or are we talking about, are you controlling your blood sugar level? There are 24% of digital health apps that actually deal with health and disease and treatment. That's a small portion of the booming, enormous digital health market. This looks very benign, but if you read the title, I think you start seeing the disconnect. According to a report by IMS Health from 2015, 1 in 10 health apps connects to a device. That's great. 1 in 50 connects to healthcare providers. So we have the patient, maybe the patient and their device. We have the physician, and we have a disconnect. If you look at physician burden, you can understand why there's a disconnect. But if you think about where does the patient need the clinical input, and how does the information from the patient's measurements and devices connect with their clinical treatments, you might see that there is a problem, or at least that there's potentially a problem. Trends in digital health to keep an eye on from Clara are digital health interventions will be something to look for. Hello, this is why we're here. Provider-centric solutions, and I think we've seen a number of them here, very, very inspiring ones. Big data analytics and new model insurance companies. That's we're not dealing with. So this looks very promising. This looks great. I think we have other things to look at and to maybe be concerned about. And I wanted to cite 2 papers. Maybe we'll just make one that I wrote, again, with Dr. Stefan Becker and with colleagues. In this one, we looked at real patients, at people who have high blood sugar level, who are age 60 and above, and who are not necessarily very tech savvy. We asked them about blood sugar monitoring for their diabetes. What we found was that only the tech savvy patients, the one with a positive approach toward technology, were going to use a device. That's a concern, because that's only half the patients that we surveyed, and these are patients who agreed to participate in a study. This isn't the entire patient population. You can guess what's going on there. Something else that we found, which is not coming up, that's okay, is that the patients were concerned about their doctors. They said, wait, I'm going to have measurements on my app. This is very nice. Where does the doctor get in the picture? Does my doctor know? Well, let me tell you something. Their doctor doesn't know. I ran the Health 2.0, the Pharma 2.0 series in New York City's Health 2.0. The doctors just cannot be brought in the mix every single time. They're not interested. It's not going to happen. So this is something to look to look at and to consider. Another intervention that we did was with an adherence device on an iPad. And there we went even farther. Stefan, would you mind checking what happened with the slides? It's like the end disappeared. And there we went even farther. We gave iPads to old patients, really old patients, age around 75 up to 85. People who never looked at an iPad, they didn't know. We had to put a sticker on it to say, where's the on button? Because there really isn't an on button. And what we did was we made home visits. This is low tech. This is as low tech as it gets, to go to someone's home, bring them an iPad, put a sticker where the on button is, program it for them. Incredibly low tech. But guess what? It worked. And these seniors ended up really liking really liking their adherence devices, using them, preferring them to pen and paper, adhering more to their medication, and we didn't have enough to see if it really made a difference with their blood sugar level, but it seemed like they were measuring more frequently. What this teaches us is that we're very technologically advanced, and this is wonderful, but that's not all that we need to see, so I'm going to caveat this. I'm a psychologist. Psychology is my hammer, so everything I see is a nail. I see the need for psychological integration, but I think it exists both with patients in terms of their uses, and not just UX and UI, because it can be a beautiful device, and iPads are beautiful, but if you give my mother an iPad, she's 86. She has no clue, and that's fine. It's not her job to figure it out. It's whoever's creating the device's job to make it very easy for her, or the health system who wants her to use it to moderate this usage. Otherwise, we will be catering to the patient population of people who are around age 35, who are much more interested in their Fitbits than they are in blood sugar level. They may not be experiencing this need. That's the first point I want to make. The second one, yes, thank you. I wasn't lying. The second one is about how do we bring the physicians into the mix. With over 300,000 digital health apps, we cannot expect the doctors to know each and every one of them. We're seeing that there's a convergence, there's standardization, many people using very few apps, and that is fine. In a way, this is okay. It's okay because we all use Google now, and we all use various services, and we shop from Amazon, and things converge because they're easy and they're standardized. I'm not advocating for one only market, but I'm saying this makes things a lot easier and a lot more feasible. This is the study I talked about with Dr. Stefan Becker. So what do we need to look at? We need to look at patient usability, comprehension. This is something I have numerous studies about. You cannot believe how depressing it is to run a study on comprehension because comprehension is poor. Don't ever assume that your patients know something. Half the time, you are wrong, even if it's something very, very simple. The second thing to worry about is physician integration. Don't assume that if you're creating something that's wonderful for the doctors to use, they'll actually use it. They'll actually take the time, and time is very, very precious for them to learn it, to integrate it into their system. Thank you very, very much for coming to this wonderful event. I hope you learned about it as much as I have in preparing these slides and thinking about all these trends and wondering what we're going to see here in our event next year. And now, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. It was even better without the slide. Thank you for this technical challenges. I think we've got time for 2 questions from the audience. Any comments?
Thank you. Just quick question because I'm a resident doctor and self-monitoring and empowering patients is always a great idea. But what do you do specifically to keep doctors in the loop? Like you mentioned previously that they kind of are dropping out from the loop and healthcare, and some patients actually say, you know, why do I need doctor? I got Google, which is seems to be a bit crazy from my point of view. So, and the second part of the same question, some doctors are more tech savvy others are less tech savvy. Is there research on that, how to integrate and help out doctors to actually use new tech to actually assist their patients and improve better healthcare?
These are like 7 questions, and each one is better than the other. I'm not even going to start with Dr. Google. You say it's crazy. I agree. This is crazy. I once thought I had lung cancer because I had bitter taste in my throat, and that's what Google said. No, it was because I was drinking soy milk. So I had a few very, very sad weeks thinking I'm going to die. Then I turned off the soy milk, and everything was fine. So that's my little blip on Dr. Google. I think we need to give value. We need to give value to patients by not just measuring, but also explaining, showing them what to do. That's more of a question of how can they use digital health. They'll use it if they see something is coming out of it. Why would they go to the doctor? Because they see value in bringing this input to the doctor. Why would the doctor be in it? If we make it easy for the doctor, if it's not just burden. If you're a doctor, you don't want to go home and check your email and see this huge log of data that you're now obligated to look at. If there's value, if there's a summary, and I think the imaging companies that were here were tackling this challenge. So many images, what am I learning? One of you guys said green or red. I don't know if we can go to this level of binary information, but if you summarize it and make it easy for the doctor, again, don't assume. Don't assume that if the doctor is young and super tech savvy, they have time to learn your machine and they want to integrate with it immediately.
Thank you. Last quick question.
You talked about 5 areas in which most of the apps are, right? Besides that, I mean, medicine is a big field. Any other areas where these kind of apps development can be helpful? Because everybody seems to be just running into these 5 areas.
It's really a great question. The truth is that value can be found in very big numbers, and I think that's why a lot of people are going to diabetes. But I happen to work with pharma on rheumatoid arthritis. I worked with maybe 3 or 4 companies on rheumatoid arthritis. There aren't that many patients, but each patient receives very expensive drugs. So I would say, and it's a sad answer, it's not my value system, but it's practical, I would say follow the money. Where there's money, with rheumatoid arthritis, there's money. Pharma is going there. If you can bring value, again, it's the question of value, not in terms of human values, but if you can solve a problem, which is a small problem, but is meaningful to a certain amount of people, and someone is footing the bill for that problem, you have something going for you.
Thank you for the discussion. I think we have to close now to keep in time. And now I would like to ask the panelists back to the stage for the final discussion.
So thanks again. Okay. So we have our panelists back with us, and we have Diana. Would you like to introduce yourself, because you haven't been here with us before?
Well, thank you very much. So my name is Diana Rucinski. I'm a project officer for SME Instrument. SME Instrument is the program that funded the companies that you have seen presenting today. Is an EU funding program which supports very innovative, disruptive, and high-risk projects from the concept to bringing the products to the market and basically scaling up. And we are operational since 2014, and we have very impressive figures, but maybe I can mention about them a bit later.
can mention them now.
Okay.
That's
okay.
fine.
So since 2014, we have received more than 30,000 applications, and we have more than 2,700 companies in different sectors. One of the main areas is health. Where we have about 412 companies that are tackling, they're developing from medical devices to biomarkers and very innovative cell therapies. And in addition to the funding, which goes from 50,000 euros to 2.5 million euros, we are also offering business acceleration services in order to try to make sure that these companies are able to put the products on the market and to scale up and to become a global player.
Wonderful. Thank you. We really have wonderful panelists today. We had some of them last year, so I know for sure that they really are wonderful. Where I would like to start is with each of you presenting yourselves again and talking a little bit about what is your strategy and what is it that you find compelling about a company. Why would you invest in a company? And if you need help, which I think you don't, is what do you think is no longer enough? What used to be very shiny and new a few years ago and now just doesn't make it? So would you like to start, Martin?
That's a tough question. Maybe I start with introduction. Martin Pfister, I'm immunologist by training. I have set up 3 startups myself, and then went to the Aidoc Gründerfonds 7 years ago. So I switched the side of the table actually, and I'm there in the life science team. And the Aidoc Gründerfonds is a fund that invests in seed and early stage companies only. We are a very big fund, so we have almost more than 900 million euro under management, and since a couple of weeks invest out of our 3rd fund, that's 310 million, and we invest per company up to 3 million. We have a lot of industry money in our fund, governmental money and money from a bank. Saying that is that we take really high risks. So we look at companies who are in prototype or pre-prototype stage with better versions of software, and we invest across all sectors, industry, IoT, machine, automotive, energy, and life sciences. And within life sciences, from biotech to medtech to software. They are what I didn't know before when I was with my startup companies. Obviously, there are sort of fashions in investing in startup companies. And one sector that has been hot a couple of years ago, but it changed, is medtech. We have seen a lot of medtech companies here, combining diagnostics as we have seen it, or image analysis with the software or analysis or intelligence. But in the last years, the money goes more towards biotech, pure biotech, pharma and drug development, and towards software and digital health apps. Saying that is, we have experts here, but most of the investors struggle with eHealth and digital health topics because there's no real experience on an exit of those type of companies, of those type of businesses, and this is a really tough one. So we have invested now in 8 digital health companies. I myself have invested in one of the pioneers in digital therapy that's called Sonamed. They have an app where you can treat tinnitus with modified music, and it took us 2 years. I invested 3 years ago. It took us 2 years to get the first contract with the health insurance company. Now they're invested with, they are reimbursed by 22 insurance companies that absolutely top in Germany. But if you look at the revenues and the time that takes from making this appointment with the insurance company and the first revenue takes another year. So it's a really tough area, and you have to be really dedicated and need experts like next to me.
I have a lot of pressure. So my name is Clara Leonard. I am part of the investment team at Digital Health Ventures. We're a venture capital fund based in Berlin, investing mostly in Europe. in digital health. And so the backstory behind the fund is, so as you rightly mentioned, there was a bit of a lack in the investment landscape in digital health a couple years ago, and there were either traditional tech funds that were quite reluctant to invest in healthcare because it's regulated, because it takes a long time to take to market, and on the other end of that spectrum, you had the traditional healthcare VCs that were more investing in biotech or medtech. It didn't really know how to evaluate all of this digital product in between. And that was really the sweet spot of digital health venture, was to say we're going to focus on that in between and bring both the tech knowledge as well as the healthcare industry knowledge in order to help this company grows in that ecosystem. And so with that in mind, in the team, we have background coming from that specific industry. So coming both from the practice management software, so dealing with doctor software, most coming from a pure tech entrepreneur background. Me, myself, I come from a pharma background, and I was with Sanofi before in helping developing all the beyond the pill solutions, so digital health, digital therapeutics, to go actually just beyond providing insulin for diabetic patients, for example. And so what we try to bring is, of course, more than just capital, to provide openness to the network and to support you in connecting with different health insurers and with providers as well. And what we look for in company, because I think that was also a question, and what's not so hype anymore. I think the technology itself is not something where we will spend so much time on. We'd be looking a lot at how do you integrate into the workflow or the patient journey, make sure that you don't create any hurdle in this. And we would look a lot at how do you deal with all the different stakeholders, and are all the incentives aligned? Because I think I'm preaching to my own choir when I say that. So there are many stakeholders that all have different incentives, and we've seen many solutions trying to say, we'll sell this to hospital. And I think you mentioned this before. What is the pain point that you're really solving, and is someone really willing to pay for your solution? So I think now, increasingly, we're really trying to validate that value proposition that you have. Is really someone willing to pay for this? Is that business case being validated? Of course, in addition to you're solving a pain point, is the market attractive? Is the technology certified and validated? But I think this is really something that we pay attention to now.
My name is Chris Piepenbrock. I am technology prospector for Amgen. My original background is in bioinformatics, and I was a biotech entrepreneur myself for many years in the fields of diagnostics as well as digital health. Now, Amgen is a large pharmaceutical company, over $22 billion of revenue. It's a California-based company that has innovative products. Most of them are actually antibodies and in several disease indications. And the innovation process at Amgen has for a long time focused on the next great molecule. So what's the next drug going to be? And now just recently, the company has advanced all its internal structures to also look at the technologies that go beyond the molecule. At Amgen, we call it beyond the molecule, not beyond the pill, because most of our drugs are actually injectables, so they are not pills. But it's all the technologies surrounding that. So I'm part of a new structure in global strategy and technology innovation, and we've just this year basically built 5 new technology hubs around the world to have a better perspective on what technologies are out there that can support Amgen's disease indications and Amgen's drugs. We have a hub in Singapore, one in Tel Aviv, one in Berlin, where I'm located, one in the Silicon Valley and in Southern California. And we're looking to find things that support the core value that our drugs deliver. And we have coined that the 4 Ds. We're looking for 4 things D. First thing, we're looking for new technologies for drug delivery. So once we have a great molecule, how does it get into the patient? We're looking for drug formulations, new ways of formulating drugs and getting them out there. And we're looking for diagnostics. That means tests that find our patients in a better way, earlier, better diagnosed, ready for precise precision medicine treatments, and we're looking for digital solutions. And digital solutions is a very wide area of fields. They can relate to our R&D phase drugs to optimize clinical trials. They can also relate to drugs that are already on the market in supporting doctors or patients with onboarding patients, with therapy adherence, with patient-reported outcomes, with artificial intelligence decision-making tools, and with clinical record integration, for example. When we look at these solutions, we take an approach where we can do different things with startup companies. We can just work with startup companies where in the end they become our supplier, where we integrate our solution into our marketing. And when we do that, usually we team up and do a pilot study and validate exactly the things that you've just mentioned, not just whether there is a technology, but whether it fits the clinical setting and whether there is a validation that it actually works in the context that we're looking for. But we can also go and invest into companies. Amgen has an own venture arm that can take a strategic stake in startup and biotech companies, and it usually does that only when there is an interest in one of our disease areas that matches that. Mm-hmm.
My name is Caspar Stauffenberg. I'm managing partner at CatCap. CatCap is a transaction advisory company, so we do deals for larger fundraising tickets, and most of the time exit cases when technology companies, early young companies, growth companies get sold to larger strategic players, like, for example, Amgen. That is one function why I'm sitting here, and I'm personally looking at the healthcare industry, medical devices, pharma, and the provider businesses. The other reason, we as CatCap, we are part of a consortium which works together with IASME, and we promote an accelerator network. And this comes, I think, with a deep passion that we do feel that it's very necessary that we need to combine the various roles to make useful and needed innovation happening. And I think this passion comes for two reasons. One is I like the medical space because, unlike so many other things you can spend your time in life with, to improve health and improve outcome, I think is something which is very easy to be motivated for. And the second thing is that although it sounds so sensible that in the medical space you need innovation, it's so very, very hard to get innovation to happen. And one of the reasons is that in the medical space, you don't find the application of common sense, because the medical markets are more driven by regulation than by common sense. And therefore, innovation needs to kind of, come across the various hurdles and regulatory hurdles. And when you ask me what drives me, I think I try to look at patterns which make it easier for innovative companies to get across these regulatory hurdles easier, because then you get an economic gain. And one of the big disruptions happening currently, coming from outside the medical field, is actually digitalization. So a lot of technology comes out there, has been developed in other fields, and now they migrate into the medical field. And this is one of the elements where I think we are specifically keen, because we then try to understand what is the disruptive element of it. And if the disruptive element is really big, then I think there's a fighting chance for an innovation to actually land in the medical space. So that's definitely one thing. Thank you.
As I was mentioning earlier, my name is Diana Rucinski. I'm project officer for SME instrument under Horizon 2020 European Union framework program. Our program has a budget of 3 billion euros until 2020, and specifically between 2018 and 2020, we have 1.6 billion euros to give to support about 4,000 innovative companies. And in fact, this is a very exciting moment for us because, as I was mentioning, we are operating since 2014. But from next year, we are undergoing some quite significant changes in order to make sure that we are really selecting, we are really finding and selecting and funding the best companies in the field, not only on healthcare, but also in a digital field and on other topics. Some of the changes that we are undergoing are renouncing to topics. So far, we had 13 topics. 2 of them, some of the biggest topics, were dedicated to healthcare and to eHealth. But from next year, these topics will disappear. We are going fully bottom-up. This means that we might be able to fund even more healthcare companies and to bring more innovative solutions to the market. When we are selecting and when we are choosing a company, we have 3 criteria, and the main one and the one with the highest weight in this in all of them is the impact. This means that we are looking to see what kind of pain is the solution solving. We look to see how they are planning to commercialize. We are funding projects that have a very good knowledge of the market. They have to demonstrate a very good knowledge of the market, of the competition. They have to clearly present their value proposition, and also they have to have an extraordinary talented team, not only technical team, but also a commercial team. And we are helping this endeavor by a big pool of independent experts, external experts, which have background from technology, investing background, and also financial background.
Thanks. Wonderful. Martin, I'd like to get back to you because I think you didn't answer the question of what is tempting for you in a company, and then I have another question for everyone.
Sorry for having missed this out. For me or for our fund, tempting is a company that actually has an exciting technology. So we look at technologies and a great team. So as I said, we can look at things very early on. Companies that come out, or people have an idea, come out of universities, and we drive across the country, invest mainly in Germany. So we drive across the country, go to universities and talk to entrepreneurs, to potential entrepreneurs, to scientists, and try to pull out their ideas then and set them up with them. Or you want to see any specific?
No, this is great. I have 2 very quick questions.
Support entrepreneurship, so basically.
You know, that's always commendable. I have 2 quick questions. I'll start with one of them, and I think it was raised here also. Are there areas where you think there's a trend which may be up and then will go down, as opposed to areas where you think there's a hard demand which will remain stable over time? Can you identify such areas at all? Or? Now, I think it's difficult for an entrepreneur if you think diabetes, huge problem. You come in and people say, well, you know, you're a little bit late for the party because the market is saturated. That can be not exactly the response you were looking for.
I mean, what we see, we in our third fund, we have now 30 large or mid-cap industry companies that put money into our pocket. And what they are looking for, especially chemistry companies, this is solutions that provide them with, you know, help them in the digitalization of their business, not only on, you know, improving health or having a nice diabetes or measurement app or connecting to a doctor or setting up new image analysis, but to basically support the processes. The digitalization of the processes is one of the biggest issues. So B2B platforms related to health, to production, to the production and process in drug development. in connecting with all the stakeholders in the healthcare industry. This is something that we really see a lot, and where all these especially mid-cap companies that are in healthcare space look desperately for solutions.
Any other ideas?
I don't know if I'm visionary enough to be able to say which one of the area is going to crash in 10 years. But what I can say is there is one area where we see a lot of activity at the moment in early stage, because we tend to receive investment proposal of around seed or Series A type of rounds. And I think about every 2 weeks we receive something about personalized nutrition or personalized fitness. In blood testing, DNA testing, microbiome testing. So today we're really at the space where these were technologies that were mostly used in clinical settings before, and they are companies that are taking these results and putting them in the hands of patients and providing them with insights about how to better behave on a daily basis. And I think in general, it is going to go this way. However, today, the amount of insight that is being provided is, I think, quite limited in order for it to really have value for patients or for consumers. So I think if I was to put a hype on something at the moment, I would put it around this. However, I do see a general trend, and I can anticipate that there will be big winners in that space that can really bring value to patients and help them in, it's either self-optimization, if you want to call it that this, but more better understand one's metabolism, one's body, and better act on it.
Self-optimization, I like that.
One of the things I see is the buzzwords of the years. Right now, everyone is talking about suddenly putting artificial intelligence into their solutions. And that is a good thing. And I do not think it will go away. It's just that it's so new that it's now finding its way into the solution. It's just like with cloud. Everyone was talking about cloud for 2 years, and that's not going away, but it's now normal that every solution has a cloud component. So when one of those fields matures, like AI, we're going to be looking not for just some fancy algorithm on the PowerPoint slide, but we're looking for the changes that it can actually do. And some of the things that might seem hard may actually look like the easy things in the future. That's digging into data and finding insights. What I believe will be even harder is using whatever technology, including an AI, to actually change behaviors. Behaviors of patients, behaviors of doctors, when they prescribe treatments and when they try to keep patients compliant and on treatment.
I really appreciate what you say, because it goes back to value. Goes back to not just saying I have AI, but I have AI, and this is the difference that it drives. Thank you. Sorry.
I think there's the good news is that there's resources available to pay for staying alive and staying healthy, they increase. So our propensity to spend money on health grows with our wealth. And I think as a rule of thumb, the expenditure for health grows 1.5% above GDP growth, so as a very, very robust algorithm. However, the demand for eternal life is eternal, so there's never satisfaction to the demand in the market. And the more solutions there are, the more you need efficiency. So I deeply believe that you will find a complete restructuring of the healthcare provider industry by using digital data and using more automation. This does not mean to substitute men and human beings, but you will need data to just put more efficiency in the system. So I see that absolutely coming. Yeah. And this is for the provider end, but it's also for the product development end. I guess for pharma companies like you guys, I think there are two problems. One is recognition and the other one is prediction. So you want to recognize the right molecule and then want to predict that it gets across all the regulatory hurdles and get to the market early and not spending and wasting billions. And recognition and prediction both is a data thing. So you will have more data, you will have more libraries, you will have more data approaches to make use of the accumulated data, and the accumulated data and availability of it, it's growing exponentially. So that's another thing. I think it's another gold mine, so to speak, to make use of the data. So I think those are the two elements where I'm absolutely intrigued that this is going to be happening. It's one of the major things, and I don't think it's a short-term fashion.
So we thought that we know very well the topics that will take the spotlight in the next years, and that's why we had so far topics like biomarkers or cell therapies or medical devices. But then we realized that we are missing some, having these predefined topics, we are missing really some innovative proposals that are the crossroad of different topics and different technologies. So this is the reason that we have decided from next year under the European Innovation Council to simply renounce to the topics and to go fully bottom up and to let the market decide which are going to be the most successful technologies and the most successful applications. But I think that whatever these are, they will put at the center the patient, the needs, and also the capacity of the patients.
Yes, that's necessary.
Talya, may I add something in the structure where we see big changes, and I think most of you will agree that payers, like insurance companies, they're really open towards digitalization. Most of them have a new position. It's called CDO, Chief Digital Officer,
right.
And they really are trying hard to find new solutions, working with the startups, setting up incubators, accelerators, venture arms, insurance companies, investing or putting money into high-risk venture capital funds. So this is a big change, actually, that where the payer, the insurance companies take high risk very early on and maybe even choose a product where the insurance companies, together with a startup, then go to a clinic and try to sell it.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the point of time, and that's something I wanted to ask you guys about. In October, I was in New York at the Financial Times Digital Health Summit, and Stefan Becker, who's a general partner at K9 Partners, said that in 2001, he sold his radiology company. Okay, now his competitor, who didn't sell in 2001 but sold in 2017, sold his company for $3.5 billion. So it's a question of what's the time span? What does time look like? And you mentioned it before, Martin, because you said it took 3 years to see money from the insurance company. So not to make anyone here overly optimistic, but certainly not overly pessimistic, what do you think is a good time frame to expect to see revenue coming in or an investment coming in? Would you like to start, Caspar? Well.
Yeah. It's a lot longer than in the non-medical markets. So I think as a rule of thumb, we feel that in the pharma is different, but in the medical devices, and software again is different, but in medical devices, you probably need 7 to 10 years to have a product which is certified and regulated and you're allowed to bring it to the market. And then you need another 7 to 10 years before it actually earns money. And the reason for that is that after you got your CE on FDA approval, you need to convince the payment system that it's worth the while to pay money for it, and you can only do it based on data. So you need to have another 3 to 4 years of gathering clinical data. And if I look for a e-commerce business model, so now I was talking about 15 years, conception to positive cash flow. And if I look at e-commerce business models, it's maybe 3 years. So 5 times as long.
The pharma industry, of course, is slow when it comes to developing new drugs. A new drug takes 10 to 15 years to develop. And when we look at new technologies beyond the molecule, we hope to find solutions that have an impact much faster. Of course, the hurdles are usually regulatory. And when, for example, we change drug delivery, we've launched a device where instead of the doctor injecting the drug, there is an auto-injector that you stick on your arm and that injects the drug. That takes several years to develop because you have to go through full device regulation. But when it comes to digital solutions that touch the patient or the doctor, we hope to see innovation projects that go much faster. And our first ones that we implemented ourselves, where we didn't even partner, were just done within 2 years. And for a pharma company, that's a revolutionary speed from idea to impact.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on this about the fact that most of these time-constrained also come from that regulation that takes some time to open up and open new markets for companies. And so if you look at what is happening in the US, I think a lot of the digitization and the telemedicine is being pushed by the switch from the fee-for-service to value-based care. And that was something really being driven by CMS and by a change in regulation about how we're going to pay for healthcare. And I think in European countries, we tend to see similar pathways and similar trends happening. In France right now, there starts to be a reimbursement for the telemonitoring of specific chronic diseases. And because there is this change, now it opens a new market to make companies more viable when it wasn't the case before. So it's not so much about just the technology, it's really also about having a viable business case that integrates into a true regulation.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think in the case where you said, does it take time to make money? There are two cases of companies. There are the one where it does take time because there are regulation hurdles and getting certification and so on. And there are the ones that don't make money but don't really have an idea about how to make money. And I think in digital healthcare, we've seen a lot of these digital apps or digital technologies developing, building up a massive customer base, and then trying to say, okay, now how do we make money and how do we survive, or can we exit now? So I think they're both, and I think they shouldn't be really compared.
And they shouldn't be surprised that they're not making money because they never predicted it or planned for it.
And maybe we might see combinations. So today, the first digital drug has been approved by the FDA. That's a drug that's for schizophrenia, and it's a generic drug. And what this pharma company for a generic drug, you need just do a big phase 2 or phase 3. Maybe it takes 5 years or so, but they partnered up with a sensor that is put in the formulation within the drug, and you want to swallow it, and it comes in contact with the stomach fluid. It sends a signal to a patch you wear on your body, and then to the app. So you can recognize, or the payer, or the doctor, or your family can recognize if you've taken actually the drug. And this combination, the company who developed the sensor, it might take 3 to 5 years, and the drug, of course, longer. So these combinations, a sensor, digital solution with a drug, might combine smaller and faster development cycles with drug development. I hope.
Do you have one last thing to say, and then?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very, very quickly. So indeed, first of all, we are paying a lot of attention to this aspect of companies making money, and we are trying to select companies with a strong business plan and commercialization plan. Then we already start to see the first results of our investments. Like, for example, I can give you the example of an early company, a Swedish company, Immunovia, which they are developing a blood test for the detection, for early detection of pancreatic cancer, and they have recently started to be traded on Nasdaq Nord. So, yeah, we are seeing results.
Thank you. I think what we've seen here is not only a wonderful group of very smart people, but also a wonderful group of very smart people who come from different places and maybe point to different ways in which digital health can receive investments, be they non-dilutive funding, venture capital, pharmaceutical companies, and other venues. So it takes a lot of creativity not only to develop a solution, but also to find the right funding and the right person who will understand who you are, what you're doing, and will be incredibly excited about it and help you develop the business model, because being great at developing digital health and being great at developing business models, as Clara pointed out, are not always necessarily the same thing. I would like to thank our panelists. I'm sorry, we don't have time. I'd like to thank our panelists and to invite Dr. Stefan Becker to introduce the winner of today.
Well, thank you very much for the fruitful discussion and the interesting insights. Now we come to the climax of today's eHealth Venture Summit, and I would like to ask all the companies to the stage, as well as the panelists. And I think Caspar Stauffenberg is going to do the ceremony, and for the final group photo. Please come all the companies to the stage.
sorry, I just wanted to mention something in case you are looking for undiluted funding. I can strongly recommend you the European Innovation Summit website, where there is a tool which allows you to find the most appropriate funding scheme for you, SME instrument, FTI, or the prices, or future emerging technologies. Thank you very much.
So the winner is, and I now may pass on the trophy to Caspar Stauffenberg.
Yeah, I have the great pleasure to give this award to the winner, and it seems I've not looked at the statistics and the algorithms of how the math was to be done. But since it was also the winner on my sheet, I have the feeling that it's almost unanimous. The winner is MintLab. Yes. So congratulations. You did a very good job in convincing us, convincing the panel. No, it was not easy. It was not meant to make it to be easy for you. But this does not mean that the others would not have deserved to also win. But maybe you tell the others what you just did slightly better than the others. It's very hard to make these type of comparisons because we are absolutely convinced that everybody who did come forward and present has all the merits and is definitely useful and very helpful to create a better world. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for coming here, and we hope to see you next year. Okay, bye-bye.